Hello. How's everyone doing? Good. Hello. Is that Ray online? Okay. So, God, we are week 5 already of all this? Dang. I can't believe I was able to pull this off. 5 weeks. I got one more. Wow. So, we're going to continue to talk about metta. Just wondering if anybody has any questions or anything knocking around from last week.
I wasn't here.
We talked about metta practice, a practice of loving kindness, and I gave a little bit of a history about it. I told the story of how the Buddha, I guess, came up with it. Do you know that story? Yeah, I mean, really briefly, it was there were some monks that were looking for the perfect place to practice, and they found the really perfect place to practice, and they describe it as many sutras do, with jeweled lakes and, plenty of food and so on. And but the area was inhabited by tree spirits. And the tree spirits were like, okay, we'll put up with these monks for a few nights. But when the monks didn't leave, the tree spirits got annoyed. And they started making like a lot of sounds and a lot of noise and making sickening stenches, all this kind of stuff to scare the monks away. And so the monks did get scared, and they ran to the Buddha and they said, what do we do? We need to find another place. And he's like, go back there and chant, and I'll teach you this sutra that you can use to generate kindness and compassion toward them. And so they did that, and the tree spirits, welcomed them with open arms and made space for them and so on. I like that story. I like the idea of tree spirits. Actually, I was thinking there were just a few things I thought about this week, and that was one of them, about the tree spirits thing. And I think I take it literally that there are tree spirits that may or may not have liked these monks here, and they're probably out there now not liking everything that's happening around them. But I also think that one thing that story illustrates is there's so many things that we can be afraid of and be fearful of that we can't see. So, the monks couldn't see the tree spirits. They didn't know they were there at first until they showed themselves in human form and did all that they did. But I think that's been my kind of practice with metta, is dealing with the fears and the so on that I can't necessarily name. It's one thing to be afraid of a snake or a lion. It's a good thing. We just need to leave them alone. And we talked about that a little bit last week, that sometimes, in the story, another story of the Ajahn Fong, who had a snake move into his room, and he didn't treat the snake badly. He didn't try to kill it or try to harm it. He just basically started practicing metta for the snake, and the snake left. So realizing that it was better for the human and the snake to just simply live apart. So that we recognize this when we practice metta, that sometimes it's important for us and certain beings to live apart, so that if we can be fearful of them, but we don't have to react to them in fear. And I think that's part of what this practice is addressing. Is, you want to be afraid of a snake or a lion, but do you want to act out that fear towards that creature and potentially cause harm to yourself? To the being. I was thinking about, I think you said it, Dokyo? Did I get your name right? I haven't said it very many times. Dokyo, excuse me. I'm so sorry for saying it wrong. I think I was thinking a lot about how you said chanting I want to make sure I said it correctly, how you stated it, chanting the sutra at the end of a retreat at Great Vow was sweet. And I was thinking about that, which we'll chant it in a few minutes, the Metta Sutra. It is very sweet, that we look after each other like a mother would a child, and that we cherish all living beings. But, I think those words really belie the difficulty of the practice. And, I feel like, at least for me, to actually and deeply and authentically generate the wish for beings to be well and to look after themselves with ease can be deeply transformational. And I say can be because I certainly haven't accomplished it yet. I think about, I'm sure you all have at least, I think I said this before, but I'll say it again. I'm sure you all have at least one very difficult person or very difficult relationship in your life, or have had. I have a couple at least. The relationships with these people I'm thinking of has been deeply wounding in many ways. And it makes me angry when I think about them. And I feel the pain of that, the difficulty of the relationship. I feel the pain of it when I think about it. So I think on the one hand, I can be angry and I can act out and I can be angry, and that's one way to deal with it, but it's ultimately not transformational. I just kind of spin around in my own stuff. But if I recognize that there's a wound there in these particular cases that probably won't ever be healed, it might just kind of lay there open and vulnerable. By practicing metta for myself and metta for those people, I can on the one hand, it doesn't hurt so much, and I can see it in a broader picture. I can kind of see it as part of a bigger issue that's not just about me or about that other person. And then I feel like I can see beyond that immediate situation that's making me so angry and that's so painful. So that's what I think is transformational. And then I don't have to be reactive if I happen to meet this person. I don't have to be reactive to them and generate more bad karma for myself. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I think I just want to, I didn't want to criticize or anything about the simple or the sweet, because I think it is sweet. But I think it's also really hard when we're practicing kindness and compassion for people that we truly don't like, or people who have wounded us very deeply. It's really hard. But and I think to your point about, if you don't have it to give, how do you do it? I think you find it somewhere. I think you find some little something, some little thread. I think of like a piece of a thread that's like a loose thread in a piece of clothing. You can kind of go, okay, there it is, and I can kind of pull this out, and maybe I can give you that much right now. I think you dig as deeply as you can to try to find something that you can cultivate. I mean, thread is probably not the best analogy, because then you don't want the thread to get bigger, because then the clothes come unraveled. But if maybe a tiny flame of compassion that you can nurture through this practice, that can eventually, it may never be a full blooming fire. You may never, feel as much kindness and compassion as you think you should, but you can find it within yourself. So, and I think this kind of gets to one of the, if you think about it, most of the difficulty in our life comes from our relationships with others, with other people, usually. So this is where the practice is really important, whether we know them or don't know them, or they're abstract to us in like politics or whatever. But so, how do we take care of our relationships? One way to do that is through practicing metta, taking care of ourselves and taking care of our relationships. Other thing I was reflecting on is when I first learned it, I learned it at Great Vow, actually, a long time ago, at a retreat at Great Vow. It felt like an affirmation. And affirmation, this is back, I don't know, it was the 90s maybe. Affirmations they were kind of a thing. People were posting them on their mirror and so on. And metta felt like that to me, like, oh, this is so corny, But and then I feel like I was practicing out of my own, be free from fear, be peaceful, trying to sort of clamp on myself to make it go away, make the pain and the anxiety go away. But that actually had some merit to it after a while, because it was like taking the broom and dusting out all the crud a little bit. I was just noticing how the light catches the dust in this room and it sparkles. But clearing out all the dust. So I think that even though it feels kind of weird and maybe like an affirmation, I think it's like with Zazen, when you start sitting with Zazen, you're like, why am I doing this? I'm sleepy, it's early in the morning, this is boring. When I sat my first week-long retreat, I'm like, I spent my vacation time on this, and this has been years ago, where you're just getting up at Great Vow, it was like 3:30, getting up at 3:30 every morning and, sitting starting at 4:30 and just like, and you're like, you can't keep your eyes open. And anyway, you're drinking as much coffee as possible, then you can't sleep at night, blah, 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 blah. You're like, why am I doing this? And I think any kind of practice like that, any kind of spiritual practice can feel sort of artificial, but yet something keeps you going. And maybe it's that thread again. Something keeps you with it. Let's see, what else is worth sharing here? I think cultivate is a really important word. We have a mind that at least neuroscience tells us that is plastic, neuroplasticity, that we can unlearn stuff that we think is so much a part of us that we would never think of being any other way, and we can learn new ways of being. It takes time. But, I think about, all of us here, we all were born in a particular, we all came into the world in a particular time and place that, so far as I know, we didn't choose. We didn't choose our parents. We're the results of myriad causes and conditions, most of which are unknown to us. And as we grow, we create stories that build a self, build our perspective on the world. And it's true that some of these events have a profound impact on us, on who we are. But you think about what are the things that you remember and what are the things that you forget. I'd say like 90% of our lives is probably forgotten. There's just kind of a thread that we sort of pick up and hold on to, and this is who we are. But there's like, I often think, I don't remember certain parts of my childhood. I'm thinking, probably because it was boring and I wasn't doing anything, but I just don't remember. I have no memory. And so it's like, I don't know, but we pick up a certain thread and we say that this sort of string of events is who we are. We could just as easily have picked up some other string of events if we remembered them. And then they color how we look at life. And that's not that the stories, the narrative is unimportant, but I guess some of the things that always come to mind are like really. I don't know. I'll just be blunt. I grew up in the South in the 60s, and, I just kind of absorbed the culture of that time, which was a racist culture. I didn't know. I was a kid. I just didn't know. Nobody questioned it. It's like you grow, like I'm saying, you're born into this. My father was a Southerner. He was from Georgia. He had grown up that way. He was like a fifth generation Southerner. He'd lived that way for, umpteen, years, and his, generation after generation. But I had to unlearn that, I had to unlearn that. And I remember very, very clearly, I don't know why I'm sharing this. Maybe just because it's an illustration of how we see who we are and how we can change. I think it was in my late teens, and I hadn't been living in the South for quite a while at that point. And I was in Seattle, and I went to a doctor, and the doctor was from Africa, and I remember him touching my arm to give me an injection of some kind. I forget why. I don't remember what it was, and I just kind of like this. Because I knew it was because he was black. I knew in my heart that that's why I did that, And then I was like, oh my God, I hope he didn't notice. I hope he didn't notice. I hope he didn't notice, because I felt really, really bad about it, But that moment started this unraveling of all of that stuff, and I could start to unwind from all of that conditioning that I had become. That was just part of who I was, but it didn't have to stay that way. And so I sort of beat myself up about that for a few years. And then I remember at one point, it's like it stuck with me. It's been so long ago. It's been over 40 years ago, and way over 40 years ago. And I think I still remember, like, never saw that doctor again. Have no idea what his name was, but asking for forgiveness in my mind and in my heart. I'm so sorry. You did nothing wrong. It was me being. Just reacting out of this conditioning that was part of who I was, thankfully was. So I just use that as an example of how we can be so conditioned to something that we don't even realize it until we're like pushed up against it. I don't know, does anybody else want to share anything like that? Or, I know this isn't, this is kind of a weird setup, but in terms of me being up here, you being out there, but you don't have to. Okay.
Yeah, it's helpful for me to think about the pathways of the mind in my patterns, in my habitual patterns, and seeing how, like, my connection from one thing to another could be very strong because I travel it very frequently.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I see this thing, and it's automatically very connected to discomfort.
Right. Yeah, perfect. Yeah. Frustration, yeah, fear,
That connection is like automatic because I've traveled it so many times.
Yes,
and so
yes.
Like catching that and feeling like, oh, how can I, what else can I connect this to?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, I can connect this to maybe, some more curiosity or maybe some kind of compassion. And it's like, oh, I haven't, gone from here to there very much. So it's like, it takes a bit of like focus.
It takes a bit of doing, yeah.
It takes a bit of doing, but after that, then this becomes more smooth.
Yeah.
And perhaps the other path, the other connection.
It kind of falls away a little bit.
It falls away once the habitual pattern can.
That's what Kyogen Carlson had that term, habit energy. Where and there is some importance to it. If you do see a snake, you do want to react appropriately and not go up and go, hey, But what is that? There was something I was going to say. Something made me think of. Shoot.
Kyogen's like seeing it. Once you see a habit pattern, its days are numbered or something.
Yeah, really. And once you really see it, and it's like, really, does this serve me? Oh, I know what I was going to share. It was similar to that. It was like, I used to be afraid of the dark. Like, I don't know why. I just used to be afraid of the dark. And I think it's because I was born in cities, and I grew up in cities, and I'd always lived in cities, and my parents were kind of fearful people, and and so I just learned that this is another thing where you just learned it and you had no idea why. And nothing had ever happened to me in the dark. People say, well, it must have happened in your childhood. Nothing ever happened. I was just afraid of the dark. And when I moved to Oregon in 1991 or 2, I lived in south of Roseburg, out in the country. And it got very dark there at night. Very dark. There was no ambient light at all. And then my former husband worked in I think at the time he was working in a place where he had to be gone 4 or 5 nights a week. And I was there by myself with the kids, and they were little. And I can just remember being we were living in this little tiny mobile home, and I was just like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? It is so dark in here, and I'm trying to go to sleep. And then I'd hear noise outside, and I think it was somebody trying to get into the house, and then look out and it'd be deer or raccoons or peacocks or possum, be all kinds of critters out there. And somehow just it's like, oh, well, there's nothing to be afraid of out here. It's just critters. It's just dark. And I don't know, I'm just full of story. I'm just tired tonight, I think. But I remember we had a patient in the BHU where I work who spent most of her time, she was homeless by choice, and she spent all of her time outside, and she always wanted to go out on the patio at night, and they wouldn't let her. It was against the rules to go out on the patio at night. She's like, what? It's just because it's dark out there? And it was just so, I'm like, yeah, it's pretty silly, isn't it? Why can't you go on the patio at night? That just seems really dumb. It seems like it'd be a really nice thing to be able to do. So I think Zazen does this too. I'm not saying Zazen doesn't do this, but practices like metta and lojong can really kind of dig at us in a different way, because it kind of directs our energy towards those certain habit patterns. All right, what have I got? What do I want to do next? Let's chant the sutra again. Who needs a copy? Because I did make more. But I can just give them, it's fine if I just again, thanks to the Peace House for the copier. There we go. And if I have a couple more here. I think I made 10. That should be plenty. Do we need to go over again how to chant this? I can't remember. You have you chanted this before, Kogan? You have, haven't you?
No, there's one.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, we'll just go through it slowly. So, when you see a dot below a word, you lower your voice. As an example, this is what should be done. And then when you see an underline, you draw the word out a little bit. By one who is skilled. So that's the dot above where you raise your voice. By one who is skilled in goodness. So we'll chant it really slowly, but that's kind of the basic, the basic pattern of it. So it's the dots below, your voice goes down a little bit. The dots above, your voice goes up, and when there's an underline, your voice draws out a bit. Now, it's also true that the way I learned this, that I realized after chanting last week that probably drawing out words in places where there are no lines, because that's just kind of how I learned it. So we'll muddle through it as best we can. Okay, if you want to ring the bell when you feel ready, we can start. This is what should be done by one who is skilled in goodness and who knows the path of peace. Let them be able and upright, straightforward and gentle in speech, humble and not conceited, contented and easily satisfied, unburdened with duties and frugal in their ways, peaceful and calm and wise and skillful, not proud and demanding in nature. Let them not do the slightest thing that the wise would later reprove, wishing in gladness and in safety. May all beings be at ease, whatever living beings there may be, whether they are weak or strong, omitting none, the great or the mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near and far away, those born and to be born. May all beings be at ease. Let one another, even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child, so with a boundless heart should one cherish all living beings, radiating kindness over the entire world, spreading upwards to the skies, downwards to the depths, outwards and unbounded, freed from hatred and ill will, whether standing or walking, seated or lying down, free from drowsiness. One should sustain this recollection. This is said to be the sublime abiding, by not holding to fixed views, the pure-hearted one, having clarity of vision, being freed from all sense desires, is not born again into this world. So we're going to practice. I'm going to lead you through a metta meditation, just like we did last week, in a few minutes. But I thought I'd offer just a little bit of analysis of this sutra, just to kind of get a sense of how it's structured. So this is not my analysis. This is someone else's that I'm sharing with you. But it's divided into 3 parts, essentially. So the first part, which is the beginning, this is what should be done through the first time, may all beings be at ease. This is where we're applying a systematic application of loving kindness to ourselves and in our day-to-day conduct. So these first, let's see, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, like 14 lines or so. Right after wishing in gladness and in safety, may all beings be at ease. We're working on ourselves. You know, we're kind of setting up the guidelines for our behavior. We're skilled in goodness. We know the path of peace. You know, we're straightforward and gentle in speech. So these are the qualities that we're wanting to cultivate to be able to offer loving kindness to ourselves and others. And then the second part, which starts with whatever living beings there may be, and then I think goes to even as a mother protects with her life her child, her only child. That is where this is kind of, I think this is what is said to be the concentration part of the practice. So we're taking in all living beings. So we've taken this practice into ourselves, and we're starting to generate it out. Doesn't matter who they are, weak or strong, mighty, medium, short or small, the seen and the unseen, those living near from far away. And I always think of what is that line in the Diamond Sutra? Those born from an egg, those born from a womb, you know, all of those different categories. I think it's the same kind of thing. You know, we're talking about everybody, like everybody. No matter where they come from, no matter how they arrive on this earth, even if they seem, I always think of my compost pile, you know, where the little fruit fly eggs get stuck in the lid, you know, where'd they come from, you know. So no matter where they come from. And then the last lines, starting with "so with a boundless heart," and then towards the end, speaks to a total commitment to this philosophy. So this is how we should behave. We should cherish all living beings, radiating kindness, and spreading it in all directions. And this is how we send it out into the world. So this is what does he say? He puts it much better than I can. A total commitment to the philosophy of universal love and goodwill. Loving kindness through all bodily, verbal, and mental activities. There was another thing that this is, I think, Tanasaru Bhikkhu. I'm just into trees lately, but he says the practice of metta can be likened to bringing into being a great tree. And I think it works because think about how long it takes for a tree to grow, for one. So this gives you a sense of how many lifetimes you have to go through to really perfect this practice. From the time a seed is sown to when the tree is heavily laden with luscious fruits and sends forth. I mean, we got this apple tree out here at some point. It's going to be putting out the fruit, and we will smell the sweet odor far and wide. But so we have these seeds within us. It gets back to that we hear it a lot in various contexts. So we have seeds of goodness. We have seeds of not so goodness. We have all these seeds inside of us. Metta helps us to cultivate those good ones, so they can grow we can grow in loving and kindness as a strong and noble tree would grow. I just like that tree metaphor. So, I have to share this. I probably don't have a whole lot of time, but there's an older metaverse that apparently is based on an ancient snake charm. I don't know why I like that. I'm just thinking, snakes come up a lot, they come up a lot in religious imagery, probably because they were, you had to be really careful around them. But this is a really another interesting metta practice that's specifically directed towards the non-human world, or the more than human world, I should say. For those without feet I have love. I have love for all with 2 feet. For those with 4 feet, I have love. I have love for all with many feet. May those without feet do me no harm. May none with 2 feet do me no harm. May those with 4 feet do me no harm. May those with many feet do me no harm. May all beings, all living things, all who've come to be, one and all, may they see every blessing. May no evil at all come to them. Without limit is Buddha, without limit is Dharma, without limit is Sangha. So I just love that it's, looking at how, the beings with no feet, and the 2 feet and 4 feet and many feet. This covers pretty much everybody. All right, let's do a practice. Got a lot more stories in here, but we don't have time. I might pick up some of this next week, depending. Okay, so we have another 30 minutes or so. We'll just do the rest of our time together. We will do a loving kindness meditation, and I'll guide you through it. Maybe you want to ring the bell, and then I'll just, after I'll signal, in some way. So just kind of keep an eye up here. So whenever you feel ready, you can ring the bell, and we'll do a metta practice. Everybody get comfy. So this practice suggests keeping the eyes closed, but you can do whatever feels comfortable. Just do what you normally do in Zazen. Just repeat the word metta a few times to yourself. Just allow the word to sink in without trying to really think about it too much, but maybe just allow it to kind of, settle itself in your body. Almost like you're planting that seed, that tree. Planting that tree that wants to grow. Maybe sift through some of those seeds a little bit and maybe reflect for a moment on love as the opposite of hatred, resentment, malevolence, impatience, pride, arrogance. Thinking of love as a profound feeling of goodwill, sympathy, kindness, promoting the happiness and well-being of others. As you settle in, just begin to visualize your own face in a happy and radiant mood. If your mind resists this, just do your best. Just to see your face as if in a mirror. Happy, radiant. You might even just put a slight smile on your face. Sometimes this can help. And as you breathe, just holding the image of your own happy and radiant face, you can say to yourself, may I be free from hostility, free from affliction, free from distress. May I live happily. Or maybe just free from fear, peaceful and at ease. And on your next in-breath, let's just bring to mind, I think at this point, our meditation teacher or your meditation teacher. And just imagine him in a happy frame of mind, projecting the thought toward him, may my teacher be free from hostility, affliction, distress. May he live happily. you begin to bring to mind other living beings that are to be revered, perhaps other teachers. You might put parents in this category, maybe other elders, people you admire, maybe that you don't know well, but you admire them deeply. Just express towards each one of them as they arise in your mind. May they be free from hostility, affliction, distress. May they live happily. And begin to imagine, one by one, the people in your life that you love, that you're close to. Just allow them to rest in your heart and your mind, just giving each a few breaths, either imagining them or feeling their presence. Just wishing for each of them in turn that they are free from hostility, affliction, distress. May they live happily. the spirit of that other meditation, let's not forget our four-footed friends, four-footed loved ones. Maybe you have loved ones with no feet or many feet, but certainly our four-footed friends. Let's hold them a moment in kindness and compassion, wishing them to be free from hostility, affliction, distress. May they live happily and peaceful. And then next, bring to mind neutral people for whom you have neither like nor dislike. Perhaps neighbors that you don't know well, workplace colleagues, acquaintances. Just think of all the many beings that you encounter on a daily basis. You don't know them, but you depend on them in many ways. So wish for each of them in turn to be free from fear, peaceful and at ease, to be happy. And finally, we can move towards visualizing persons for whom we have dislike, hostility, maybe people who have harmed us or hurt us in some way. It's not easy to do. And really what we're doing here is, whether we have a relationship with this person or not, we're trying to generate a mind that has no hostility, and that we wish for that person to have no hostility towards us. So we can say, for example, I have no hostility towards him or her. May he or she also not have any hostility toward me. May you, too, be free from fear, peaceful and at ease, be happy. And I don't think this is in the classical practice, at least not as I've known it, but we have a world that's in so much hurt, so much conflict, so much polarization, not only in the human realm, but in the more than human realm, with, unpredictable climate, and so on. So I just, in whatever way makes sense to you, just invite you to allow as much of that in as you can. And wish for all beings, more than human, the rock beings, the tree beings, the water beings, the grass beings. Wish for all of these beings to be free from hostility, affliction, distress. May they be peaceful and at ease. minutes left. If people have questions or comments or whatever.